All right. So, welcome to this amazing boundary workshop. This is going to be an incredible workshop today. For those of you who come on live, for those of you who catch the replay, it's a subject that is just really near and dear to my heart that I've been talking about and living through and experienced and have had a lot of blood, sweat, and tears around. If you are here today, most likely boundaries or the lack of boundaries have affected your life in some way, shape, or form. And there's a myriad of different types of boundaries that we have that I'm going to be getting into in a little bit. But, maybe the lack of boundaries looks like saying yes to an overwhelmingly amount of requests for yourself. Maybe it looks like having a hard time sharing what's on your mind or your heart. Maybe it's about asking for a favor. Maybe it's about asking for time off or being afraid to ask for time off or to ask to postpone. Maybe it's a client session, or maybe you're an entrepreneur and um, have a hard time saying no to too many phone calls in a day, or you end up picking up the phone when you're eating dinner and it's impeding on your, personal time. Maybe it looks like if you have children and having a hard time saying no to kids, or not right now, or no, you have to work for that, or I'm busy. You're going to need to figure it out, right? So it shows up in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it shows up as just like asking for support. So this workshop is not just about creating boundaries and talking about what we stand for, um, and what we don't stand for. So as we're getting started, feel free to mute as you come on. Thank you so much. Nice to see you. So as we're talking about boundaries, talking about all the different ways in which boundaries can affect our lives, and not just boundaries, but even just asking for support and being afraid to use our voice as women, and whoever ends up watching this replay, even men too. I think we've all grown up in, depending on our upbringing, a variety of different ways in which talking about what it is that we want and need is hard. Because let's face it, like not all of us had this, fairy tale upbringing where you had parents that were like, tell me your thoughts and your feelings, and I want to hear you. And oh, I hear what you're saying, a lot of times, no fault of their own, but we were brought up in whatever we were brought up in. Our family was doing the best they could based on what they knew. And so communication is always like a little bit tricky with learning how to express ourselves and feeling safe to express ourselves and actually getting our needs met. So before we get into all of that, I just want to introduce myself to you guys, to those who don't know me, who will be watching this replay later. To let you guys know, my name is Jen, and I am a holistic life coach, and I am a mother of an awesome teen 50% of the time. For those of you with teenagers, know that it's a fun cycle of life, and it's all about boundaries. So I get to learn how to be really clear with my boundaries, and he's learning how to be clear with his, which is great. So we both get that opportunity to do that. And so basically, 18 years ago, I came to Hawaii. So I live on the big island of Hawaii. And I came to Hawaii, was married at the time, and assumed that moving to paradise was going to solve all my problems. And lo and behold, my problems came with me, my issues came with me. And it turned out to be a really hard experience for me living here. About 2 years after I moved here, I got divorced and was raising a child, a baby, as a single mother, doing the best I could. Fast forward, I ended up kind of getting overwhelmed with this debilitating virus called Epstein-Barr. For those who get it, not everybody's affected, but it really took a toll on my life and depleted me in every way, shape, or form. And I had to continue to trudge forward and to survive and to work and to provide and to do all the things as mothers we do, despite everything. And I didn't really know what was going on for many, many years, but I was in big time survival mode. And I didn't have any help or support, very little, in fact. So it's all I really knew was to keep pushing, keep trying, keep doing. And it basically pushed me into like overload. And I did everything I could to try to find a cure for this and looked into every healer to try to cure me, heal me, supplement, and did a lot of searching out there, and was basically looking everywhere but in here, and didn't realize that was where I needed to begin, even with the physical manifestation of everything happening, because there was no supplements that were touching it. And I'll tell you, as I fast forward into this story, I discovered a really incredible program. It was a 2.5 year intuitive program. Now, I was a little bit woo, but not super woo woo. So I was a little like, what is this program going to do for me? It was actually a medical intuitive program. And I ended up trusting in the process around this. And what this program uncovered for me was the ability to understand myself on a very, very deep level, and understand myself in a way of going, I know where the root of my issues come from, the root of my people pleasing, why I was always so anxious, why I felt like I could never slow down, why I put everybody else first, why I felt guilty if I said no, why I found myself in relationships that ended up, I felt really taken advantage of, really manipulated. And that was really, really hard as well. So I, did a lot of understanding of where these patterns came from. And that program basically saved my life. And before I knew it, about a year later, I started recovering from chronic fatigue syndrome, and I had more vitality. And the more vitality I had, the more courage. The courage just started coming out and coming up. And I realized that there were a lot of things in my life that I put up with, and allowed other people to treat me in a certain way that was really disrespectful. And I didn't realize it at the time. So I started learning boundaries probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And it wasn't easy. And this is before I had any tools. And the only tool I had was my voice. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I had to begin to express myself. And I started with little things. Well, maybe not so little people. I had to start with a landlord, who reminded me of my mother and who was super pushy. I had to start from there with different relationships. Then I had to stand up to parents. And if you're just getting started on this journey, I recommend starting with small situations, like maybe somebody at a grocery store, who didn't give you all the money back, or sending back a hamburger at a restaurant, because I had my work cut out for me. And so fast forward, I ended up finding an incredible coaching program that saved my life. It was during COVID. I jumped into this program, and it was a scary jump because it was, I had lost my job, and it the timing was off, right? It was one of those things where I'm like, oh, the timing. And I knew if I didn't say yes to this program to move forward into my dreams, into my goals, that I would never. And it was one of those, I'm scared to death and I'm going to say it anyways, and I'm going to do it anyways. So I jumped in, and it was one of the best things I ever did for myself. It empowered me in a lot of different ways. And so here I am, ready to share everything that I've learned in the last 5 years, the hard way, the easy way, blood, sweat, and tears of it all. And I've created a program now to help women and men learn how to stand up for themselves with ease, with grace, to feel less scared about doing so, to figure out what their boundaries even are, how to use their voice in a way that feels really good. So, without much further ado, I want to get to know you guys. So, I know Sarah is driving, and for those, I would love if you have a second, let me know a little bit if you want to type it in the chat, or if you're on live, let me know, yeah, where you're coming from and what your journey has been like, or maybe what the biggest struggle is that you have around boundaries. And maybe it's somebody in your life, maybe it's relationships, maybe it's your kids, maybe it is coworkers, maybe it's your boss, maybe it's your mom. We all need to work with our boundaries with mom. Um, oops, I'm gonna mute that. All right, that down. Sorry, I'm just trying to look at two screens. All right. Oh, and my chat is hidden. Don't hide on me, chat. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, the feelings of discomfort, absolutely. Absolutely. Feelings of discomfort are really hard. I get it. Yep. And I feel like as we're going to be talking about that, we're going to go into the feelings that really prevent us from standing up for ourselves, that are really difficult. There's three key emotions that I'm going to get into. So, I want to talk about the different types of boundaries. So, there are many, many types of boundaries. When we think of boundaries, sometimes we don't think of all of them. Few of the different types of boundaries. We have physical boundaries. Okay. So that's like our personal space. Maybe that's like how much physical interaction you're capable of or wanting in your life, hugs, kisses, affection, no affection, so that's your personal kind of your personal space. There's emotional boundaries. So the ability to express yourself without taking on the emotions of others, or when an example would be also like having stronger emotional boundaries. Maybe you find yourself, if you're an empath or a really compassionate person, you find people that just want to dump or share their entire life with you, and it's never the right time, or you feel like, oh my gosh, I am stuck in hearing this person's life story and I need to go and I don't know how to get out. I don't know where to go. That used to happen to me quite a bit. All the time, yeah. All the time, yeah. I mean, my whole life, and probably if you were like me and you are a sensitive person, then, you're gonna get people who resonate with that, and they're like, "Oh, somebody who's sweet, listening," 'cause let's face it, we all want people to listen to us, and we all wanna be heard, and it feels really good to have that comforting voice or shoulder there, but also as empaths, we get to choose what is too much for our system. And you're going to know that because it's going to be based on feelings that we're going to talk about as well. Like what's happening for you at that moment when things become overwhelming, when it feels like too much, when it feels like this is just, I can't handle this. And so recognizing what those feelings are inside of your body when those happen. So then there's time, boundaries around time, right? How much time do you allocate for yourself? How much time are you willing to allocate to others? Um, Maybe it looks like, are you willing to answer your phone after 5 o'clock or not answer your phone or emails or requests? Um, Maybe it's around clocking out, right? When you're supposed to clock out versus having the boss or somebody say, "Hey, do you mind just staying 5 extra minutes, and taking care of this?" Maybe it's around saying, "No, you know what? I really have a hard stop at 6 today to pick up the kids or not pick up the kids, but I have a hard stop at 6." Yeah. And then we get to try to do this without feeling guilty, right? And that's the hardest part around all of this, is being able to take care of ourselves without feeling like we're doing something wrong or bad or mean or selfish. And yeah, can anybody here relate with actually trying to create boundaries and then you end up doing it and you're like, God, I feel like crap. Are they mad at me? Are they upset with me? Am I going to feel it later? And yeah, it's a horrible feeling. It is. It is. It's like one of those things that we want to take care of ourselves, but doing so really brings up a lot of angst, really brings up a lot of angst. And it's really fascinating how that happens for us. Just want to see one thing here. Okay. Not sure if this is what I'm trying to do here. Here we go. Okay. Yeah. So trying to take care of ourselves without feeling guilty is a trick, and it takes a lot of practice, and I still have to work on it every single day of my life. When I say yes, when I say no, and to work on letting go of it's really not my business what other people think, as long as my side of the street is clean, as long as I'm asking for what I want in a really effective and clear way that's not pushy or mean or rude, then we get to have what we want. And nobody ever told us that growing up. I know nobody ever told me that, that our feelings matter, our desires, our needs are important, and they matter. So, moving into a few other types of boundaries, material boundaries, right? Those are your belongings. Maybe that looks like lending money to people. Maybe you have people in your life that tend to ask you for money, ask to borrow things. Maybe it's your kids using your stuff and you don't want them to. So, or maybe it's your kids, sharing or not sharing with each other and having a hard time with that, being able to not feel like, just having a hard time sharing or just feeling bad, and maybe there's a lot of fighting in the house. So then we have intellectual boundaries, what you are comfortable talking about. Maybe there's certain topics that are really off limits for you that you just don't want to deal with. So there's all of these types of boundaries. So if you want to put a comment into the chat or into the live, what boundary feels like the most difficult for you? Is it intellectual, material, your time, emotional, physical, all of the above? D. So, this right. Yeah. So, all the different types of boundaries can really take a toll on us. So, the three emotions that tend to keep us stuck are fear, guilt, and shame. And these are the three emotions that I find have a hard time. Just letting somebody in. Okay. So the three emotions that keep us stuck are fear, guilt, and shame. So fear is all about I'm afraid to say no because, and sometimes we feel like we're losing our identity and we get obsessed. I'm afraid of the repercussions. I'm afraid how they're going to react. I'm afraid of pissing somebody off. I'm afraid of looking a certain way, right? I have a client who I work with, and he is always afraid of how the boss or his coworkers are going to see him. And that is his biggest thing that we're working on, is all around this fear of like, what if he was to leave even on time or a little bit early because he stays late all the time? He's got just a lot wrapped up in that fear-based response of how are they going to see me? And so when we can work on some of these beliefs, which is what I do in my program, helping people to work through beliefs around what prevents us from standing up for ourselves, right? What prevents us? Um, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, feel free to mute when you get a minute if you're just arriving. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, I just want to read in the chat. Yeah. So I'm seeing about being afraid to put boundaries on the dad of your child and how that will impact your son. Yeah, it's sometimes there is that, depending on the type or the dynamic, right? Not every boundary is an easy boundary, especially when we're dealing with really difficult people, really maybe manipulative people who tend to have a lot over our head, or we feel they do, and feeling like we're at their mercy. And those are really difficult situations to be in. And, boundaries are still good regardless, but it just makes it a little more difficult. Yeah, yeah. And so boundaries are going to look a little bit different with every person. So as we're talking about and going through the boundaries, we're going to be creating one as we get a little further into the workshop today. But it's going to look different than if you were to create a boundary with somebody who's loving and a really good listener and somebody who's open and sharing, and they're going to hear you and love you no matter what, right? Versus somebody who you're not going to get as vulnerable with. So when we're going through the process, we're not going to be sharing our deepest, most innermost feelings with that person because you know it's not safe. So recognizing who is safe to share with when it comes to creating boundaries and how to create a clear and direct boundary. Oh, I feel like I'm glitching a little bit here. Am I glitching? A little glitching. No.
You
Where's my
froze up
mouse?
a little bit, but you're good now.
Am I good now? Okay, I saw that.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. I love you, Zoom. We've got this. We've got this today. Ground out some of that energy. So there's the woo coming out. Sometimes we can just ground our electronics and see if that tends to work a little bit there. All right. Hey. So yeah, it's going to look a little different. And so it's going to be a matter of being more direct with people who don't have the space or capacity to really listen to our boundaries and are pretty disrespectful. So those boundaries are going to look a little bit different. And then we'll get into those a little bit further in. So guilt, the guilt says, if I say no, then I feel bad, right? So think of times that you've said no to somebody or said, I have to put my foot down and you felt really bad about it. Shame, right? So under the surface, we don't even realize that shame is an interesting emotion because it kind of says, I'm wrong, I'm bad. And it's so deeply hidden that most humans very rarely take a look at the shame that we tend to carry. And we all carry it, um, in different processes, therapeutic processes, one specifically called internal family systems. It's basically, he talks about, these shameful parts of ourselves that are tend to be exiled, kind of pushed away, pushed aside because, it's a lot to look at. And that is why a lot of times you'll meet people who are really defensive or even some narcissistic humans have carry a huge well of shame and they're not willing to look or take accountability because it's so painful and it's not comfortable looking at the shame that we carry, but it's necessary to understand it and to befriend it and to do the healing work around it so we don't feel like we're doing something wrong every time we try to take care of ourselves. Yeah. So, just noticing that for yourself, like how often do I feel bad or ashamed every time I try to take care of myself? And asking yourself, where do you think that comes from? And this is something that we'll be getting into in my program, that I talk a lot about and looking at like the root and just noticing, God, I wonder why standing up for myself feels so hard. Where did that pattern come from? Maybe it was growing up, maybe it was mom or dad, or maybe you didn't have a voice at the table, or maybe you were like a lot of old fashioned parenting. It's like, do as I say, not as I do, you know, um, just do it. I'm not gonna, I don't want to hear about your excuses, your tears, your this, your that, you know. So it's like we didn't feel like we had a voice. And when we don't feel like we have a voice, it's very hard to speak up. Right. And so then we get these ingrained patterns. I know for myself, um, yeah, I had a rager of a mother and an interesting father. And so I always struggled with boundaries. And it was really, really scary because sometimes we're up against people who try to make us feel horrible for creating them. And then you do the second guessing, right? Of like, am I right? Am I wrong? And I recently went through that in a job, and that's what motivated me to create this workshop for you guys was this situation of having to stand up to a boss. 47 years I've never stood up to a boss in my entire life, and I had to do it. And I questioned myself even after doing this work. God, the way she talks to me, it makes me feel like crap, but am I wrong for bringing it up? And I would do this dance of like, is this okay to bring it up? And sometimes we'll do that. And I don't know if you guys ever notice that in yourself, like moments where you're like, you want to create a boundary, but you're just, am I right or am I wrong? Yeah, that second guessing and not trusting ourselves. Yeah. And so it's so important that we come back to that feeling of like, it doesn't feel right for me. So that is my truth. They get to have their truth over there, and their truth may look very different than my truth. their experience of life, their experience of me may look very different. And I had to go through a process of saying, when I'm compared to other people, I feel not great, right? And would you be willing to not compare me to other coworkers? Because that would feel a lot better for me. And, the response wasn't this, I wasn't met with this, oh, absolutely, I'm so sorry. I mean, we get lucky when that happens and blessed, depending on the company we keep and the boundaries we have to make. But it doesn't always look like that. And I'm here to talk about the reality of that as well. So sometimes we're going to create boundaries where people don't understand it, they don't get it, and they might make you feel like you're crazy, you're too sensitive, you're asking for too much. Anybody here relate? Sure, in my people pleasers group, there's a few of us who can just relate with feeling, especially if you're, highly sensitive. It's not easy to survive in a world with a lot of, I don't know how you describe those people out there, but how would we describe those people? No, it's not easy. It's not easy to have to, continue to take care of ourselves in a world that just doesn't get it. Yeah. Angry and hurt. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Um, and so it's, yeah, but we have to do the work anyways. And so, I was met with this reaction of, well, nobody else thinks like that. And I've never worked with somebody so sensitive before, but it doesn't mean I can't try. Or, well, I didn't mean it like that. I meant it like this. And so it was anything but accountability. And it would have been nice to have it, but I had to give it to myself later. And so sometimes we get to do that for ourselves. We get to say, hey, they may not be able to meet us where we're at and give us that validity and validate validity. Uh, Give us that sense of like, I did the right thing, but that's where we come in to do it for ourselves because not everybody's going to understand why we're standing up for ourselves. That's for us to understand. And we're going to get into that in a little bit as well. So, finding our why, right? When we can find our why, then it's going to be a lot easier. So, I want to talk about feelings and needs. So, our feelings and needs are so crucial to helping us create boundaries and understanding what our feelings and needs are. And so when we can do this, we get to not feel overwhelmed when people drop things into our lap, or we get to understand what's coming up for us and going on for us when people are taking advantage of us, when we are disrespected, when somebody crosses the line, when noticing what is coming up for you. How am I feeling at this moment? And it's always important to come back to, what is going on for me right now? Because when we're all up in the mind and the head and trapped in the fear and that visceral somatic response or the physiological response that elicits the fear and the mind stuff, we're not in the body, we're not here. We're like everywhere else because it feels like life or death sometimes to do this. And when I said, I know this isn't just about hashtags and boundary quotes, I know this is real stuff. Like this is, you know, it's not easy. And so coming back to, you know, what am I feeling and when should I say no and when should I say yes? And noticing for yourself that a given moment. And we can just take a minute now and notice, think of a moment in time that you've had that you have said yes and you wanted to say no, or where somebody just disrespected your boundaries. And you don't have to swim in this feeling. You can just stand to the edge of it, whatever feels safe and comfortable for you at this moment. And just kind of notice, how did I feel, when that happened for me? What came up? Did I feel disrespected? Did I feel hurt? Did I feel invisible, powerless, scared, whatever feeling kind of comes up for you. And notice what you needed at that moment that you didn't get. What was your need? Maybe you had a need to be heard, need to feel understood, need for space, need for respect. So getting in touch with that and just noticing that for yourself. And even just noticing where you carry that inside of you, inside your body, like where you hold that feeling. And so when we can become aware of where the feelings are and the needs are and just begin to connect with our body, we get out of the mind, chest or the gut. Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah. Sometimes I get it in the shoulders or the head as well, and the neck. And sometimes it creates like a myriad of physical stuff. So I know for me, I carried it, I think, everywhere. And it manifested as chronic fatigue. I was always trying to please everybody, pushing myself, afraid to let other people down. And it was exhausting. It was exhausting. Sometimes I get like shingles that reoccurs. During that period when I was at that job for 3 months, I had just some neuropathy that it was like back pain. And the day that I quit and stood up for myself, it went away. And I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I couldn't make this up if I tried. That is our body's response. That mind body connection is very powerful, especially for us sensitives. Yeah. Fatigue. It shows up as fatigue. Yeah. And it's definitely a sign that we're, a lot of things could be contributing to that, but just overwhelmed. And it takes a lot out of our system to manage, when we're, kind of pushing ourselves past our limits. It takes a lot out of our system. Sometimes we don't even recognize, what's happening for ourselves until we stop and slow down. So different ways that we can connect with our feelings and needs is grounding exercises. And you don't have to be woo woo to practice grounding. So, grounding is just a really good way to feel more stable and like centered and safe in your body, in the world. So, we can do this just by walking outside barefoot, maybe on the grass, staring at nature, meditating, taking naps, taking better care of ourselves, massage, just getting more self-care. We all love massage, right? Just that feeling of healthy touch. Diet. So anything in which we can just connect with ourselves and our environment. Maybe that looks like going for a swim or doing something outside, taking a bike ride. Meditation, removing others' energy is so good. Oh my God, yeah. It is. It is. Sounds like you do a great job of that, which is awesome. And yeah, I love integrating. I have a really fun little meditation I'm going to share with you guys and send off to you guys for creating energetic boundaries, which is really fun. And so, yeah, we get to just clear our space, taking the time to clear our space. And it's amazing. Like, we are energy, whether we believe it or not, we are all energy. And, you know, I mean, everything in our cells is magnetic. And we may not see it, but we can definitely feel it. And so when we get a chance to kind of clear our energy from other people, clear our space, you're going to notice what happens and it feels really amazing. Feels really amazing. So in that, let's just take a minute. I feel like I'm being asked to do a little bit of grounding with us today. So let's just take a minute and I'm going to walk you guys through just a short and sweet little process here for anyone who wants to join. And let's just take a minute, if you will, and just notice where you're sitting. And you can keep your eyes open or closed, whatever feels most comfortable. Feeling your feet on the ground, feeling your sit bones, being supported by the couch, bed, or the chair. Really feeling the texture of whatever you're sitting on supporting you, your back, your legs. And let's just take a nice, slow, deep breath in through our nose allowing that breath to enter into every place and space in our body that has been overwhelmed, carrying the load of other people, load of requests, and allow this nurturing breath to softly enter into any place or space that has just been carrying a lot and just bringing in this idea of self compassion for yourself right now. And when you feel ready, you can release that breath nice and slow, letting go. And imagine creating a grounding cord. This can be something hollow from nature, like a tree trunk, or something fun, a water slide, something to connect you to the earth. And I like to make mine nice and wide. So imagine creating a nice hollow grounding cord connected all the way around your waist, almost like you're putting on a skirt. And imagine this cord descending down into the earth, connecting to the where you can imagine the core of the earth to be. Whatever you notice is perfect. You can even feel or sense your feet grounded into the earth as well. Notice what the earth's atmosphere energy feels like. Maybe it's cool, maybe it's warm. And just feeling your body in connection with this part of the planet that we live on. Same planet that is supporting every living being and creature on this earth is supporting you in the same way. And from here, we're going to just slowly begin to come back and open our eyes. And just notice if you feel any different. And I didn't want to take us too deep. So we have a little bit more to cover. That connecting into the earth is great. And through my program, I actually incorporate a lot of grounding exercises, meditations to clear our energy, clear our space, to feel connected to the universe, to ourselves more deeply, and to just reboot and reset our energy, reset our mood, reset our mind, reset our physical well being in just a few minutes. So, yeah, there's a few ways to do that. And so just noticing, coming back to, feelings and needs. So how are you feeling now? What's a feeling that kind of comes up for you? You can feel free to put it in the chat if you want. Chat's not showing. It's so calm and centered. Yay. I love it. Yeah, me too. So, just recognizing what am I feeling and what am I needing at this time? And as we're kind of working through, the areas of what comes up for us when we go to create boundaries and feeling less attached to the outcomes. So I think that is one of the things that I was starting to talk about before is learning how to become less attached to the outcome. And when we go to create a boundary, in order to become less attached to the outcome, what I've discovered is that it's really important for us to figure out why this boundary is important to us. What is our why? Yeah, you always hear that saying. What is your why? So, what is your why? Like, why is this boundary important to you? So, if you can think now of like, is there a boundary that you would love to create that would improve your life? So, think of something in your life, an area of your life, a person that you would love to create a boundary with if fear wasn't holding you back. I love that little coaching jargon. If fear wasn't holding you back, I'm like, okay, but fear is holding me back. So that being said, I recognize and we can recognize that, yes, at this point, the fear may still be holding us back. And this is what I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit more through the end of this workshop as well is what to do when these emotions come up. So before I get into that, though, let's talk a little bit about, yeah, what is one boundary you would love to create that would improve your life? And if anyone wants to share, you can. And you can drop a comment for those watching in my live. Feel free to drop a comment to anyone who feels comfortable. Keep up with two screens is so fun. Tech. Okay. Yeah. What boundary in your life? Disciplining your son when he verbally attacks you. Yeah. Okay. And that has to be really hard. Yeah. And how old is your son? 12. 18. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And they get to test us and see what they can get away with. And our kids are excellent, excellent, excellent teachers for us to practice these boundaries on. And it's going to be a little bit, I was going to say, easier to do it with our children than it might be out there. Not to say that it's easy, period, because it's not. Because they've got hormones going, especially boys, and they're finally like testing us. You know, they probably felt like they haven't had much control for a lot of their life. And now they're finally seeing what they can get away with. And this is where I had to really step up my boundaries with my son. And I noticed in class, um, yeah. And it's because you're safe. You're a safe person for him to test with. And it's a lot safer for him to test with you than other people. And it's safer for you to put your boundaries down with the kids because there's not that attachment, right? And so notice like um, what is that fear? You know, what is the fear that shows up for you around creating that boundary? You know, what are you most afraid of is going to happen if you create a boundary with him? And just noticing that, you know, whoa, I'm afraid of seeming like, you know, maybe it's a belief that you've had for a long time. And so a lot of times we have these beliefs, right? These beliefs that kind of just take us over that we don't even realize are kind of operating in the background of I have a belief around, you know, I'm going to be a bad mom. I'm going to be a mean mom. He's going to like his dad more than me. I used to have that one big time because dad was Disneyland dad, right? So maybe, you know, dad lets him get away with a lot, or the other parent, or, you know, whomever it is for you in your life. But recognizing, you know, what am I most afraid of? What am I most afraid of? You know, what is this belief that I tell myself? So, what belief do you have around saying no that prevents you from saying no? Or, you know, talk to me with more respect or whatever it, however it shows up for you in your life. Um, and what would change in your life if you could create this boundary? So just imagine if you were able to create this boundary for yourself, what in your life could change, you know? And so kind of just being aware of that. What in my life would change if I could create this boundary for myself? How would it feel? You know, what need would get met for me? So maybe it's you know, you'd be able to not be angry all the time. You'd feel more respected. Maybe it's at work, you know, you'd have more time on your hands. You'd be able to leave at work at 5 and not feel guilty. So if this boundary was met, what feeling and need would that meet for you? And so just kind of thinking about that, you know, something to ponder, something to think of. And so when we go to create these boundaries, it's super important to go, okay, what boundary do I want to create and why? Why is this important? And I go into this in my program as well. And we go actually 3 to 4 layers deep. So I'm going to give you an example of that. Like, okay, it was important for me to stand up for my boss, to my boss, um, because I was tired of feeling compared to and belittled at work. Okay, well, why is that important? Because I really want to have a work environment that I enjoy going to. Well, why is that important? Well, it's important because I spend 8 to 10 hours a day there and I want to enjoy myself. Okay. And why is it important to it? So if you get it, it's like you really get to your why. And when we can hold on strong to our why, then that becomes the guiding force. And when we can embody that why, like physically, emotionally, spiritually, and intellectually, then that why becomes stronger than the fear. That why becomes stronger than the guilt. The why becomes stronger than the shame when we can really embody why this is important for us, why it's important for us to put our foot down. Maybe it's around asking for help. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was surprised too. I was surprised too. You never know. You never know who shows up. I've had, 10 attendees at one point. Yeah, I will definitely. 10 attendees at times, and you just never know. And that's okay. People get busy and sidetracked. It's very easy to get sidetracked. And I just want to commend you ladies for actually not getting sidetracked and showing up and putting yourselves first today, because that's important. It's a sign right here, right? When you can actually show up to these and show accountability to yourself, it's like, I did it. Yeah, I'm putting me first right now. I'm important. I matter. Doggone it. Okay. So moving along. We are going to create our boundary. So I don't know if you guys had time to look in your, get your little worksheet out. And if not, you can do it later. You can just do it mentally in your mind and we can write it down later if you have a pen and paper around. You can feel free to pull that out. So we're going to think of a boundary that we would like to create for ourselves today. Okay. And it doesn't have to be the biggest with the biggest, baddest person in your life, right? Maybe think of a smaller boundary. And I always think like baby steps is really easy to start with. Maybe it's your son. Maybe it's, no joke, maybe it's your dog. Sarah has a dog. It just came to me because I think of the way I spoil my cat with soft food. And I'm thinking of like, I could definitely, and my son will tell me, Mom, she could bear to lose a pound or two. Even Dr. I know, but it's her treat. I get treats, she gets treats. But he has a point, right? So we can start with something. Maybe it's our animal. Maybe it's your neighbor who parks in your parking spot. Maybe it's the person at the grocery store that's trying to talk your ear off and you just want to go and you just want to walk away. Maybe it's your mom who takes up too much time on the phone or complains about her life and you don't want to hear about it. Maybe it's having your kid maybe just put his clothes away, starting small, right? Something like that. And it doesn't have to be the biggest, most overwhelming thing. I don't recommend doing that. I know a few of my participants have gone there. They're like, we're going to tackle this. And one ended up standing up to her mother after like 10 years. And I was impressed. And she was like, I did it, but it was hard and I was scared. And then she didn't have the support so much afterwards, which I really wished I would have had for her to do that. So I'm not going to recommend taking the biggest person in your life where you might feel really, really overly activated around. Okay. This is going to be really small today. And we can always work on that if you guys want to continue this work, and we'll talk about what that would look like. So I'm going to check the chat. Let's see here. I think I'm going backwards. Savage ways with the hardest possible. Yeah. Teaches you lessons. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's amazing, right? What we're here to learn, grow from, and the ways. I mean, I never would have thought I'd be teaching boundaries. Like this would be my thing. And the universe says, oh, I'm going to give you a father who just walks all over you and just, and you're going to have to stand up to your, like, of all people. And I'm like, no, universe, don't make me do it. make me do it. And the universe is like, yes, I believe in you. You're strong enough. You've got this. Okay. So it's all in our mind and just trusting. Now, I don't advise anybody who is in an abusive relationship, and I really want to preface that to whoever is watching this later or presently. If you are in an abusive relationship, physical abusive or even highly emotional, that I'm going to recommend to definitely get additional support for yourself and make sure that you have a safety net as well. And so I want to preface, I'm not a licensed therapist yet, and I just want to make sure that people are aware of when they're doing these boundaries, who they're doing them with, and just to be aware of that. And I don't want anybody having to endanger themselves or others in this process. That's very important to just mention. Yeah. So on a lighter note, okay, so I want you guys to think of an area for yourself or a situation that you would like to change. All right. And we're going to create this into a boundary. So, what boundary would you guys like to create? And you can drop it in the chat or just keep it to yourself, whatever feels best. Okay. And whatever that looks like for you. So I'm going to give you guys an example. I have a boundary that I want to create with my son, actually. And it's a matter of him not leaving dishes in his bedroom. And then he goes to his dad's, and then dirty dishes are sitting in his bedroom. Super light, super easy, but he can be a little pushy. So I get it. He's hard headed, he's a Sag, and he is whew, taller than me. I don't feel threatened by him, but he definitely, gets a little bit pushy and controlling sometimes. So around him leaving this, okay. So, and I'm going to give you guys, I'm going to show you how this is going to work. So when we're talking about the boundary and expressing ourselves, we're going to be coming from an I place or an objective place. So this is going to be all about observation, what the situation is at hand without judgment around it. So we're going to do our best to refrain from judgment and you never and you always. So we're going to have to do that because the moment we get into judgment and blame and shame and it doesn't matter whether the person's been doing what you're talking about for years or days or decades, they're going to go into defensive. So nobody wants to feel attacked, even if they're wrong, especially when they're wrong. Nobody. So when that happens, you're going to lose people. They're going to tune out. They're not going to listen. Their defenses are going to go up. And what happens is their defenses go up. And then it's like two people doing this, right? Button heads, nobody's hearing anybody. And the whole goal around this is to feel heard, okay? Is to feel heard and to get your needs met if you can. So, observation would look like when the dishes are left in your room from dinner, sweetheart. How do I feel? Second part of this is how do I feel? I feel at the end of the week, I just feel kind of grossed out. I feel a little frustrated because I have a need for cleanliness. I have a need for cleanliness in the house and just for some ease when after you've gone to your dad's, ease to not have to clean up so much. Okay. So that's an easy one. And then you can invite in, what need would be met if you'd like, and that's kind of something I said I had a need for ease, and you could even say if you were able to do this boundary for me, then I would feel, I'd feel just more relaxed. Yeah, because I'm really looking forward to just feeling more relaxed. So whatever it is for you. And then the third part is asking in a really nice way. So are you willing? Are you willing to do that? So as you notice, like if you were on the other end of that, how would that feel to receive and hear if somebody was asking for you to, maybe not put your, leave a glass with the coaster on the thing, or to, so when we're not blaming, shaming, criticizing, people will listen a lot easier, a lot easier. So as you guys notice, when I even talked to the boss, had I have said, you do this, you do that. Or if you can imagine somebody saying that to you, you're always doing this, you're never doing that. What is that going to feel like? We're going to tune out. Okay. Ideally, if we are to create a boundary, what's really great, if you have somebody who's willing to do this with you, on the other hand, somebody who's safe, somebody who's an active participant. Maybe it's somebody, maybe it's a family member. Okay. Maybe it's a loved one, a fiance, husband, wife, whomever, that is willing to do this. Because ideally, what you would really love to have is somebody mirror this back to you. And this is actually called NVC. This is called nonviolent communication. It wasn't developed by me, but I've used it to create boundaries. It was discovered by an amazing man named Marshall Rosenberg. And this man is so incredible. He bridges nations together with this type of, he does workshops with nations at war. I kid you not. And there's a lot that gets resolved because both parties are willing to hear each other. So after, you're done explaining the situation, again, there's not you blaming any of that. When this situation occurs, I feel I have a need. Are you willing? Are you willing to do that for me? And it doesn't have to be in that exact language. You can use it more relaxed language. Is that cool? Are you up for that? What do you think? It doesn't have to be super formal. And I know it's going to be a little bit of getting used to. Are you willing to do that for me? And what may happen is the other person says, no, I can't. Or no, that's too much. You're asking too much. And that might be the case. And so at that point, you guys get to talk about a compromise. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to do so that both of our needs get met? Maybe you're asking someone to stretch beyond what they're able or to do. Maybe it's like, oh, I want my husband to pick up groceries after work. But he's like, yeah, but I've also had a hard day. So maybe you come with a compromise. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I pick up groceries. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you pick up groceries. Okay, something like that. I have another participant who, Casey, she actually was able to do this with her husband. She was so used to, um, I got another participant. She was so used to doing everything herself. This is perfect timing for this participant. Um, so she was so used to doing everything herself. This woman was a business owner and she had a lot going on. She was in a business networking group. She was a business owner. She had her own gym, married, house, always busy, always things going on, a few kids. And she just did a lot. She took on a lot. She did a lot. She was always the one kind of doing everything. And so she admitted, and she'll be fine with me talking about this. She gave me a nice little testimonial around our last one, but she admitted that um, when her husband gets home from work, she lets him just kind of, what did she say? Lay back, relax, watch TV, and eat popcorn, something like that. And it was just like so funny. She's like, yeah, I just kind of let him like hang out, eat popcorn, and relax, and kind of do his thing. And so she said there have been moments where she's trying to fit it all in. She's got like her gym to tend to and classes to run. And she was also trying to get to something else. I think she was trying to get to the gym or do a workout for herself, and then get to the bank. And so she was trying to fit all this in. And so maybe this is like asking for support. So again, doesn't always have to be about boundaries. It can be asking for support and help, which is not always easy for us, that we've talked about before. Um, and if any of you guys can relate, like who here can relate with it being like difficult to ask for support and help? Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Not easy for us women, especially when we've been doing it for ourselves or used to doing things for a long time. And again, there could be a lot of belief shifting around, where that comes from that I wish we could get into today, but definitely I'll talk a little bit more about that again at the end as far as that's what I offer in my program as well is a lot of beliefs like wow what beliefs are holding me back around that around asking for support, belief of worth, belief that my time is important, belief that I matter, and whatever the beliefs are, um, or the unconscious beliefs that prevent us. But nonetheless, so she said that she is just like she feels this pressure when this happens for her. And so after doing this boundary workshop, she said that she was able to ask her husband to go to the bank for her. And it was such a small task that he did it. And she was like, I got to the gym and it was like no big deal. And so again, assuming, depending on who your company is. Now, it's not always smooth and easy. And again, we've talked about this. Sometimes you're going to be up against people who grumble, people who ha. Oh, I was married to one of those. I don't think he'll be watching this video though, so I can talk about that. But oh my god. And I'm telling you, I avoided asking for support and help. I don't even know how many years. And I finally got a life coach, a friend who was a social worker life coach, dynamite combo. And we talked about guilt for an hour straight. And after we were done and worked through the guilt of asking for what I wanted, needed, and deserved, I was booking a plane flight for my first vacation in 15 years. So I'm telling you, like, guilt is a serious thing and it prevents us and stops us. And people know how to pull on our cords, especially if you've been doing this dance of like, you who and ha, I say, never mind, I'll just do it. Roll your eyes, you do it anyways, you get resentful, right? Like, how many times do we do that for ourselves where it's like we give in, we just give in because let's face it, sometimes it's easier than feeling, not easier than getting our needs met, but easier than feeling the feeling of the discontention or the contention happening or the frustration, the energetic frustration that's happening in this. And so when we get to be okay and work on the part of ourselves, which is emotionally regulating, the part of ourselves that feels like, oh my God, this person's going to be upset. And that can legitimately be true. They may legitimately be upset. But to be okay with them being upset is gold. I mean, that is what, if we can work on that, I feel like there is just so many doors to open up to, just to be okay with some people not agreeing, some people not understanding where we're coming from. And it doesn't make us wrong. Okay. So just because somebody doesn't understand us or is frustrated with us doesn't make us wrong, doesn't make us mean, doesn't make us selfish, doesn't make us bad, doesn't mean we're asking too much, you know? And looking at other people is like that is their experience, their impatience, their frustration, their need to manipulate the situation is their experience. And this isn't about me. This is about them. And so if we can just detach and see them in like their own little bubble, their own little essence, having their own experience, their own frustration, and we don't have to be a part of it. So detaching from that energetics of your anger means I'm bad, right? And that's a lot of, untangling some past stuff that we get to work on. And that's part of the journey is recognizing, the work that needs to be done every time we are triggered. That is just the healing that needs to be tended to. And those reminders that we get to tell ourselves that, hey, Jen, hey, Linda, hey, Sarah, you're not bad because you said no, because they're upset, because they feel overwhelmed, because they have a little bit more to do, or because they feel inconvenienced, or because, your kid is yelling obscenities at you because you had to ask him to do the dishes. Yeah, he gets to have his experience. He gets to be upset. And I get to breathe through that. And I get to notice what's happening for myself. And I get to ground and I get to emotionally regulate. And I get to remind myself in each and every moment, I get to have my needs met. I get to ask for what I want. And it's okay. So, um, we talked a lot of things. We went over, dealing with difficult people, a little bit around that, feelings and needs, grounding exercises, um, recognizing our feelings and needs, recognizing the key three emotions that keep us stuck and prevent us from people pleasing. We have created a boundary. Would anybody like to share the boundary that they've created? And I haven't checked the chat in a little bit, so let me come back to chat. Right, boundary that I'm not emotionally dumped. Oh, Sarah. Okay, okay. I love that. Yeah, I'm just now seeing that. Perfect. Um, yeah. So even just imagining, I don't know if you got to the end of that boundary, but if you can think of, something you can say. And so sometimes it's not going to be about like, if you're in, let's say, a grocery store and somebody is just telling you their entire life story, or somebody you don't really know, you may not go into the feelings, you may not go into the needs, and it might be about being a little bit more direct. I'd love to hear about this, but now's not a good time for me. So it might just be just short and sweet. Yeah, I don't have the time to listen to you right now, but I really hope you are able to work through that. Yeah, I really want the best for you. I had to do that with somebody in a parking lot one day. Every time I ask her how she is, it's like, oh God, here we go. Here we go. And it made me have to be a lot more conscientious of when I've done that in the past. And I try to be really conscientious of that. I do. And we all do it in some respects. We all want to be heard. We're all going through a lot. And so sometimes it could be about like, is now a good time? Asking somebody else, is now a good time to hear me? So like, let's say it happens to you though. It's like, yeah, I have to go right now, but I wish you the best through that experience. That sounds like a lot. And I hope you find that support for yourself. And here's my card. Either you're a friend or you're a coach, right? We've got a few coaches on on this call today. So, you guys know what I mean, right? I had a dear teacher tell me, she's like, either you're a friend or you're a client. And you'll figure that out. Here's my card. I would love to hear about this. Go ahead and book a strategy session. I offer complimentary strategy sessions. Go ahead and book your call. All right, I'm going to check this. Not answering parent messages after 4. Oh, yes. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, parent messages. So wait, you're a teacher, I'm guessing. Oh, yeah, you're a teacher. You said that. After 4. I love that. I love that. And just getting to be okay with that. And so how, recognizing how can you create that boundary for yourself to enforce that? Kindergarten, needy parents. Yes. Needy parents with our kindergartners. Yeah, and they get to be needy and you get to trust that that's not your need to meet and still take care of yourselves. Yeah, and still take care of you. So maybe that looks like shutting off the ringer, putting it in the cabinet, locking it in your car, going for a walk between 4 and 5 and just, okay, this feels a little uncomfortable for me right now. I get it. I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm used to picking up that phone. I'm used to answering that text the moment it beeps. I'm used to answering the call, and we're going to try something different and it's okay. And it's okay. So we get to practice this and it's fun work. It really, really is. And, the more we realize, wow, I can have what I want and not feel bad about it and ask for it. And the answer can sometimes be no, you're not always going to get all your needs met. But it's definitely going to take back some time, sounds like, for some of you, some energy, um, and just to feel more self-empowered. So as we're kind of getting through to the end of this, I hope you guys enjoyed this workshop. This has been nice. It's been a nice, intimate group. And I know for some of you guys who are just coming in now, you can catch the replay of this. And I really, yeah, I hope you get a little bit out of that. And are there books that I can recommend? I will think about that for now. This is something that I've just created on my own. So I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about that, and then I'll have a think about like any additional books that I could recommend and stuff. Um, yeah. So I know that we've kind of gone through a lot, and there's a lot to uncover and a lot that comes with creating boundaries for ourselves, asking for support for ourselves. And there's many layers to it. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about my boundary breakthrough program. So I've got a 6-week boundary breakthrough course. This is a really quick and activated interacting program that I've created. So through this time, we're going to be able to create personal boundaries for ourselves. I'm going to be teaching you guys that I didn't teach today, emotional regulation tools. So I have many evidence-based current practice tools to actually help us feel more aligned, more relaxed. Because as we all know, we can think about the boundary, we can have it on paper, we can write it down, it can be in our brain. Um, but it's one thing to know what we want to create, and it's another thing to go out there into the real world and actually do that. So that's exactly what I teach in my program. So I take you guys through a step-by-step process where it's going to be a sweet little group of people. Might be women, might be men, I'm not sure at this point. So far it's probably looking like a few women, where we get the chance and opportunity to practice and role play. So I'm not going to just send you guys out there after you've kind of scripted. We are going to find our emotional regulation. We are going to feel grounded as we're doing this. And then we're going to be able to practice with each other. Okay. And I'm going to throw out some really funny, little exercises, and it may look like worst case scenario. It might look like best case scenario. It might look like something in between where we get to practice, having these difficult conversations and asking for what we want, asking for what we need, to where we're like, all right, I got this, because I want you guys to feel equipped. So how we do this is basically, this is a 6-week program where we are jumping on a Zoom call once a week for an hour. We're going to be looking at mindset, working through belief systems, changing and reformulating, creating new beliefs, positive, uplifting beliefs, to turn around these beliefs that have been probably with us since birth, since we were, very, very young, around having what we want and standing up for ourselves, noticing where these beliefs came from and how to shift these, how to rewire our subconscious. So we're going to do some exercises around that, exercises around feeling more calm and confident and actually putting boundaries into action. So if you guys are interested, then what I'm going to do is I am going to share in the chat my Calendly link. Okay. So feel free to click that now if you'd like, and just open it up in another screen, save it for later. I'm also going to put this in our Facebook group and email it out to you guys. But if you think this program is for you, then I would love to book a discovery call with you. And that way we're going to have this one-on-one call where we dive into what is holding you back, what is getting in the way, where you'd like to be, what you'd like to have for yourself, what would change if you had it, and actually invite you in personally to this program. So I know you guys are probably like wondering over here, well, what's the price? What's the price? So the price is a really nice introductory price. Somebody is just coming in now. All right, well, we can talk about that now. Perfect. All right. So the price for this program is really a sweet price. I wanted to make it doable and affordable for anybody who's just really been struggling to create boundaries, needing to do this, and you don't have a ton of time or energy to devote to like a long 3-month program. So this 6-week short and sweet program is 3 payments of $200. Okay. And I am willing and open to working with you guys on to create a payment plan that works as well. So it's just 3 payments of 200 over the course of 6 weeks, where we are diving deep into boundaries, self-worth, grounding exercises, emotional regulation tools. You are going to be walking away with a lot. And not only that, I am going to be recording each of these sessions to where you guys can come back and utilize all of these tools. Excuse me. I need a sip of water. All right. So you are going to be able to utilize these tools at your disposal. So these aren't just one-off sessions. These are moments where you get to practice what we're doing. We're going to be practicing the boundaries and all of the tools and scripts. And you can be going back into the notes, back into these recordings, and actually integrating and embodying these practices. So you can feel calm and regulated as you're doing this work. So with that, I put the link in the chat for you guys if you are wanting to book a call with me, or if you feel ready to actually jump in, then go ahead and reach out. And sorry, somebody's knocking at the Zoom door. Okay. If you guys are ready to go ahead, no, it's going to be 600 total, sweetie. 600 for 6 weeks. Yeah. So 3 payments of 200, and happy to spread that out an extra 2 weeks for anybody who really needs that for themselves, for the payment plan. But that is what that looks like. If you guys feel ready, then I would love to hear from you. And this is a really great step to get started. And it's usually 50%, excuse me, it's usually $1,200 for my 6 week program. But I'm wanting to give you guys 50% off right now because I know how things are tight for everybody. I get it. I get it. And here's the thing with this. It's like we get these bouts of inspiration, right? They come in, they're exciting, and we have all of the best laid plans to put them into action. And I know after Tony Robbins' event, I was pumped. I was like, I'm on fire. Nothing can stop me. Oh my God, I'm going to become a coach and life is going to be good and it's going to be easy and I got this. And then 4 days later, my enthusiasm had about a 4 day shelf life. So after this 4 day shelf life, I realized I really want to do this, but I don't know how to do this alone. And as much as we may want to do things, sometimes it feels scary to say yes to ourselves. And I get that too. And I know I talked to you guys about jumping into coaching after that was a $2,400 program, but that was right after COVID of losing my job. And I know it never feels like it's the right time, you guys, but it should feel exciting. It should feel a little bit nervous, but exciting. And I really want you guys to thrive in every area of your life and whatever that looks like for you. Only you know what's best for you. So don't let fear hold you back in any area of life. And that is what I have to say about that. Because life is short, you guys, and we get to have what we want in this lifetime. We do. And sometimes all it takes is a little bit of work, a little bit of effort to put in there. And all right, you guys. So with that, um, let's see, anything left? Anything left? Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you to all of you who joined. And for those of you who are going to be watching the replay, and feel free, I will be sending that out. I'm glitching at the moment. I will be sending that out in an email. And you guys can catch the replay for that. Sorry if I glitched. I'll be sending that out in an email. And I have my spots. I can't. I have spaces open for the next 5 days for this program to book on my Calendly. And if you want to just reach out directly in an email and say, hey, I'm interested, we are going to be starting in 2 weeks. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Feel free to reach out if you want any more details about that. And if you're interested in one-on-one coaching and what that looks like, feel free to reach out as well. All right, you guys, with that, thank you. Thank you. Wishing you all a beautiful day of bold and brave boundaries. All right. Take care. Aloha.